the snow swallowed sound. In the forests of eastern Finland, near the border with the Soviet Union, the world was white and still. Pines stood frozen in place, their needles heavy with frost, branches groaning under the weight of snowfall. The only movement came from the wind brushing across powdery drifts and the faint shuffle of boots over ice. Somewhere beyond the tree line, a Red Army soldier moved too quickly, too loudly, and in that instant, a single crack echoed through the silence. He dropped without a scream, just a spray of red on snow. Hidden behind a ridge of snow, nestled into a handcrafted hollow lined with packed ice, Simo Häyhä adjusted his rifle. No scope, just iron sights. The same bolt-action rifle he'd used as a farmer and a hunter before the war. He didn't need optics. In this kind of cold, glass fogged over. Reflections glinted. Even the sun could betray you. Simo's breathing was steady, shallow. He didn't move. He didn't need to. The Soviets were coming closer now. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Invading Finnish territory under Stalin's orders. But this was Häyhä's home. He'd grown up in these woods. He could walk the trails blindfolded. And when Finland called for defense, he volunteered without hesitation. It was December 1939. The Winter War had just begun. The Soviets expected a swift victory. They had tanks, planes, artillery. Finland had barely more than hunting rifles and skis. But what the Red Army didn't understand, what they couldn't understand, was the terrain. The bitter cold, the thick forests. The Finnish soldiers didn't fight from trenches. They moved, on skis, in silence, dressed head to toe in white. They vanished into the snow, and at the tip of that spear was Simo Häyhä. By the end of his first week, he had 25 confirmed kills. Not guesses, not estimates. Confirmed, witnessed by comrades, no explosions, no chaos, just one shot, one breath, one kill. Then silence again. He didn't speak much, he didn't need to. Other soldiers started calling him something behind his back, the White Death. Word spread quickly through Soviet ranks, stories of a ghost in the forest, a farmer with a rifle who could see through trees. They said he shot entire patrols from trees, that he moved with the deer, that bullets couldn't find him. Some whispered that he didn't sleep. None of that was true. Häyhä didn't shoot from trees, too exposed. He didn't fire wildly. He was too disciplined. He was simply efficient, patient, and utterly fearless. In one battle near the Kola River, he waited for 6 hours without moving, buried in snow before taking the first shot. Then 5 more. Every Soviet soldier that crossed the clearing fell before they even saw where the fire was coming from. Sometimes, Häyhä used snow to mask the puff of steam from his breath. He'd carve small ventilation holes so the heat wouldn't rise and give away his position. Every detail mattered. He wore no insignia, no scent, no movement above the snow line. He didn't hunt people. He eliminated threats, quietly, methodically, without emotion. By January, he was averaging 10 kills a day. And yet, to those who knew him, Simo was unassuming. 5 feet 3 inches, quiet, kind. A dairy farmer who loved his dog and once competed in ski races for sport. He never bragged. He didn't keep count. When asked about his kills, he'd shrug and say, "I did what I had to." But the Soviets had started doing something new. They were sending out squads just to find him, not to advance, not to seize land, to find the White Death and stop him. They fired mortar shells into random parts of the forest. They bombed trees. They sent snipers of their own, men with scopes, high-powered rifles, binoculars. None of them came back. Even Häyhä's fellow Finns were stunned. They began recording his numbers on chalkboards. One colonel wrote a letter saying, "His tally is rising too fast for us to keep up." By the end of January, the count was past 200. And still, Simo kept returning to the forest. Alone, before dawn, after dusk. Moving only when he had to. Freezing temperatures didn't bother him. Hunger didn't distract him. His only concern was the rifle in his hand and the next patrol inching its way through the brush. But by February 1940, something changed. The Soviets began altering tactics. More artillery, more airstrikes, broader formations. Häyhä adapted, but the net was closing. Each mission carried greater risk. One wrong step, one flash of movement, one unlucky mortar shell. Still, he went back. The forest was his, until the day it wasn't. March 6th, 1940. It was bitter cold in the forest near Ulismaa. Simo Häyhä had been out for hours already, pressed low against the snow, waiting. The Soviets were probing again, small groups sweeping the edges of Finnish defenses. He had already taken down a few, but as he scanned the trees, something felt different. A sound. Too late. The explosion sent ice and pine needles into the air. A Soviet soldier had fired an exploding bullet, illegal by international standards, but not uncommon in the Winter War. It struck Häyhä in the lower left jaw, blowing apart his cheek and teeth, fracturing the bones of his face. He collapsed into the snow, blood pouring from his mouth. For the first time since the war began, the White Death had fallen. His comrades found him barely alive, face destroyed, breath shallow. They rushed him through the woods on a sled, back to a field hospital. No one knew if he'd survive. His face was unrecognizable. The doctors worked fast, patching what they could, but Simo slipped into a coma. He would not wake up for a week. And by the time he opened his eyes again, the war was over. The Moscow Peace Treaty was signed on March 13, 1940, ending the Winter War. Finland had lost territory but retained independence. The Soviet Union had suffered staggering losses, over 100,000 dead, and among them, an unknown number had fallen to one man. The final confirmed kill count, attributed to Simo Häyhä, was 505, the highest confirmed sniper kill count in any war, and that number didn't include his unconfirmed kills, or the dozens more he likely claimed with a submachine gun in close combat. But Simo never talked about the number. When asked later how he accomplished so much with so little, he gave a simple answer. Practice. He spent months recovering in the hospital. His jaw had to be reconstructed. He couldn't speak clearly for a long time. His face remained permanently disfigured, and yet he never once expressed bitterness. He was awarded the Cross of Liberty and promoted from corporal to second lieutenant on the battlefield, a nearly unheard-of honor for a man who had started as a volunteer farmer. After the war, Häyhä didn't seek fame. He returned to a quiet life, moved into a small home near the village of Ruokolahti. He hunted. He raised dogs. He avoided interviews, but his legend only grew. Soviet snipers studied his methods for years. Military historians compared him to mythical warriors. In Finland, his story became a point of national pride, proof that one man, well-trained and determined, could shift the balance of fear in a war stacked hopelessly against his side. And still, Simo never called himself a hero. He didn't glorify killing. He didn't romanticize war. To him, it had been about duty, defending his homeland, protecting the people he loved. One day, decades after the Winter War, a young soldier visited him during a hunting trip and asked what it felt like to take so many lives. Simo paused for a moment, then said softly, "I only did what I was told, and I did it as well as I could." He died peacefully in 2002, at the age of 96, the last survivor of a brutal campaign, a man whose face bore the scars of war, but whose life remained anchored in humility. His rifle, a simple Mosin Nagant without a scope, now rests in a Finnish military museum. There were faster shooters. There were flashier marksmen. But none like Simo Häyhä. In the white silence of Finland's forests, long after the war ended, his legend remained. A whisper in the snow, a phantom with steady hands, the White Death. Thank you for listening to Last Post History. Subscribe for more true stories from the world at war.